Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to Voice of Reason Boston. This morning our special guest is immigration attorney Bianca Gay, and Bianca also has her own practice. Good morning,
Good
Bianca.
morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you.
And for those who are tuning in and listening in, can you please tell us about your start and a little bit about how you got into being an attorney for, especially in the field of immigration?
Sure. So good morning, Boston. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
You're more than welcome.
My name is Bianca Gay, and I am an attorney in Massachusetts.
Okay.
I have been I've been handling immigration cases for about 8 years now. And immigration I kind of fell into, which was really
Okay.
a surprise to me because I'm the daughter of two hardworking Haitian immigrants. So you would think that I would have already, it would have been an automatic that I would have fallen into immigration law.
Okay.
But it wasn't. I kind of just fell in love with it during law school, and I've been helping people ever since.
Wow, that's excellent. So where did you go to school?
For law school, I went to the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth.
Okay, what kind of cases, after you graduated from law school, how did everything started? Like, how did you get into your own practice and say, okay, now that I'm done, I'm going to open up my own law office? How did that come about?
So, I've always wanted my own practice, but I wanted to work under somebody first before
Okay.
I started my own practice. But the year that I graduated from law school was really tough, and it was really hard to find work. And so nobody would really hire me to do the work that I wanted to, so I hired myself, and I started my own law practice.
That's wonderful. And did you start charging people, or was it pro bono cases? Like, how did you, start getting people to come to you and to trust you as an attorney to plead for their case?
It was a little bit of both. So in retrospect, I wasn't really charging a lot, and actually for the first couple of years of my career, I either wasn't charging anything or I wasn't charging enough. So I've been basically a pro bono attorney for most of my career. But as far as getting people to trust me, I think that I'd like to think that I'm a very honest and straightforward person. I think that people could sense that about me, and that made them want to trust me and hire me.
That's excellent. And what kind of services do you provide?
For immigration, or
Yes.
just for my law firm?
Your law firm and in immigration as well.
Okay. So in my law firm, I offer immigration services, business law, as well as trademarking.
Okay.
So I help entrepreneurs start and manage their businesses, whether they need to start an LLC or a nonprofit, or if they need me to draft or review contracts for them. I also help them apply for federal protection for trademarks and copyrights.
Okay.
And then for immigration, I do a variety of things. So I have helped people apply for U.S. citizenship. I have helped people get green cards. I have helped children apply for special immigrant juvenile status. I've helped people with asylum applications. I do a variety of things.
Okay. And I was able to go onto your website to see, your work and what you do. You do family immigration as well? And
Mostly.
Can you tell me what that entails
Sure.
for the people who are listening in?
Sure. So immigration, I guess if you want to say it, it can be divided into a couple buckets. So there's business immigration, which is exactly what it sounds like. So it's when companies want to hire immigrants. So that could be anything from applying for H-1B visas or other types of work visas. That's typically business immigration. Family immigration involves, keeping families together. So
Right.
applying for green cards, applying for immigrant visas, applying for asylum, things like that.
Okay. And deportation and removal defense, explain that to me.
So if somebody is being deported, for example, they would need an attorney in immigration court. So that's what that is. So basically having an attorney with you during your deportation proceedings so that they can adequately represent you in immigration court.
Okay, that's excellent. Especially what we're facing in right now in America. We're hearing a lot of people, I know, as you said you're Haitian and I'm Haitian as well. If it wasn't because of our parents working hard, we wouldn't be in the position
Exactly.
where we are now, where we'll be able to advocate for people and talk about certain things that's going on in this country. And my parents, two hardworking parents, working two jobs. I have 3 siblings, putting us through college.
Right.
And we turned out okay. We're not saying that we're better, but we took the principles that they provided us, and
Right.
then we made something out of it.
Right.
And now that we know for people, Haitian immigrants who have TPS, it will not be renewed by 2019.
Right.
So what as a Haitian woman, and you know your parents, if that had happened to your parents back when they first came into this country, how do you feel about that?
About TPS ending?
TPS ending, yes.
So I'm conflicted because on the one hand, TPS stands for temporary protected status. So in the name, in the benefit, you already know that it was supposed to be temporary.
Right.
The problem is that prior administrations have constantly renewed TPS for each of the countries, which they were authorized to do. So it's not like they broke the law or anything like that. And also, just for the benefit of people that don't understand what TPS is, so TPS is called Temporary Protected Status, and it's an immigration benefit given to people who temporarily cannot return to their home country due to a natural disaster, civil war, something like that. So in the case of Haiti, Haiti got TPS back in 2010 because of the earthquake that happened in January 2010. So that's why Haiti got TPS. And so TPS ended because this administration felt that Haiti had recovered enough so that it could re-accept the 60,000 people living with TPS. And if you've never been to Haiti, then you know that's not true. I mean, Haiti is a very beautiful country. I love traveling there. It's very beautiful. The beaches, it's in the Caribbean. So for people that go to the Dominican Republic, you can go on the other side of the island and go to Haiti. It's the same thing. But at the same time, Haiti does not have the infrastructure to really take back all of those people. So going back to your original question, I'm still conflicted because TPS was never supposed to be permanent, but the prior administrations kept renewing it. So if you keep renewing this benefit, the people that rely on it, they have no choice but to rely on it and think that they're going to continue to be able to live here under TPS. So if you think about people from El Salvador who have had TPS for over 20 years, you cannot expect somebody to put their life on hold for 20 years while their immigration status is in flux. So naturally, they're going to start working here. They're going to fall in love and start creating families.
Right.
So we cannot punish these people for going on with their life as business as usual when prior administrations pretty much gave them the false hope that this benefit would go on forever.
So for people who are listening in and tuning in on Facebook, what is there any options? Is there anything that they can do out there in order to, for those who have families that are already here and don't want to go back, and for those who've already established, their life in Boston?
So it's definitely important that you speak with an immigration attorney, especially if you have TPS, because you might still have options. You might have family members that can petition for green cards for you. You might have a job that might be willing to petition for a work visa for you. You might be able to get a school visa so that you can stay here and attend school and still be in a legal status. So I don't want people to think that their situation is hopeless. It's just a matter of speaking with an immigration attorney so that we can really understand what your story is so that we can see what options you have available.
Okay. And is there any other resources out there for people to know? Like if someone has TPS and don't do anything and just wait and see what happens, what could potentially happen to that individual?
So once your TPS status expires, you are in the country illegally, pretty much, unless you can find another status. So for an example of Haitians with TPS, July 2019, I think it's July 22nd, 2019, once that day comes, if you don't have another status, you will just be in the country illegally. And what that means, just for context, there are a lot of immigrants here that are here illegally, but the misconception is that most immigrants come here illegally.
Okay.
And the truth is that most immigrants come here legally, they just overstay their visa. So because if you think about it, it's easier to get a visitor's visa to come here than to wait 2, sometimes 10, 13 years for a green card. And if these people, if you're living in a country that is like war torn and just really poor, and you're able to secure a visitor's visa just to escape that dire situation, you're going to want to do that and take the chance that you won't get caught if you overstay than, having to wait 5 years to get a green card. So most people come here, most people do come here legally. They just overstay for one reason or another.
Okay. Out of all the cases that you've taken, which one have you've been touched by?
I think my most difficult case ever was a couple of years ago. I had a woman she was my client. She was a victim of domestic violence.
Right.
And so I was helping her. I was trying to help her get a VAWA green card. So VAWA stands for the Violence Against Women Act. And under this act, victims of domestic violence or immigrants have recourse. And I'm sitting across from her taking notes about her story to put into an affidavit, and I can feel myself tearing up because like I can just feel her pain, and I'm sitting here like I can't cry, like I'm your attorney, I'm not supposed to be crying right now. And I ended up having to take a break, and actually that was the last domestic violence case that I took, just because it's very emotional. It's really hard.
What was the result towards the end of the case?
She ended up getting her green card.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's wonderful. Now, we've seen the president of the country separating these children from their parents. As an immigration attorney, how do you feel about that? What is it that, as an attorney, that you can do, or any other attorneys can do about the situation?
So, as an attorney, seeing these children being victimized and used as a political pawn, it really breaks my heart, because children are innocent in all of this. They don't ask to come here. Their parents bring them here. They don't know what status is. They don't know what it's like, what it means to be somewhere illegally. They're just coming with their parents. So the fact that we're victimizing these children and separating them from their parents is really heartbreaking on the one hand. On the other hand, this is ingrained in our history from day one. You know, if you go back all the way to slavery, white slave masters would literally take slaves' children away from them and sell them off as chattel. We've done this before. This is part of our history. This isn't new. This is just a 2018 version of this, and it's really heartbreaking.
Is there anything as a community we can do to stop this from happening? Is there any resources out there for those who are in limbo, who really doesn't know what to do?
So as a country, what we can do, we really need to turn the mirror on ourselves. I hear a lot of people saying that we're better than this and this isn't us. But again, this is who we've always been. And unfortunately, the person that was elected president sees this, and he ran his campaign on this. So none of this should be a surprise. So if there's anything that we can really do, there's really nothing we can do like right now to change it, but there's a very important election coming up in November of this year, and it's really imperative that everybody goes out and exercises their right to vote. Just last week, the Supreme Court issued a ruling in an Ohio case that basically set out standards for how states can start to take people off of the voting roll. So if you haven't voted in X amount of elections, the state can pretty much strip your right to vote. So it's even more important now than ever that we vote to preserve our right to vote, and that, you know, we actually do vote. So if we really want to change this, if we're really outraged by all the racist policies that are happening right now, then we really need to put our money where our mouth is and vote in November in 2020.
Excellent. That's so true, because, you know, if we put our heads together, there's a lot of things that we can stop having reoccurred over and over. And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people that still are not voting, even though they're undecided, even though they don't know which one or who to vote for. It's just that when you don't vote, you give other people the power to do certain things.
Right, and when you don't vote, you lose your right to complain about the outcome. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that. There are a lot of people that felt like, you know, I mean, admittedly, I didn't like either candidate, you know, but I pretty much voted for the lesser of two evils. You know, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have voted for either of them. But I didn't have the luxury of not voting at all, because I knew what was on the line. And you had a lot of people that voted for him, you know, for whatever reason, because they wanted something different. They wanted, you know, to shake things up. They wanted something that wasn't the status quo. And then you have some people that, you know, didn't vote for her because of sexist policies. Like, you know, I don't think a woman can run the country, even though there are a lot of other countries that have been run by women. And then you had people that just felt like, I don't like either of them, so I'm going to vote. I'm just going to throw my vote away. And that really hurt us the most.
That's a great point. And you said earlier that you're Haitian. Your parents are two hardworking parents. What pushed you to want to go to law school? What did your parents do for you that, you know, it was necessary for you to make something out of yourself?
So I'm a child of Haitian immigrants, and growing up, my mom, so I my mom is the type of mom where I would come home and say, Mama, I got an A minus. And she'd be like, well, why didn't you get an A plus? Like, what is this A minus? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I've always had this drive to just be excellent. That's always, two people I'm afraid of disappointing, my mom and God. Other than that, I don't really care about anybody else. But I've always had this drive to succeed. And as far as being an attorney, I've wanted to be an attorney since I was 12 years old. During a school field trip, I played the role of an attorney, loved it, and just decided I want to be an attorney when I grow up, and I did.
Okay. And what type of pro bono cases did you take?
So all my domestic violence cases, I've always done pro bono. I've done some pro bono children's cases, so children that are either come here undocumented or they can prove that one or both of their parents has either abused, neglected, or abandoned them. They can qualify for a special immigration status called Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. So I've done those pro bono. I've helped asylum clients pro bono. I've done a variety of things.
Okay. And what happens to these children when they're separated from their families?
A lot of things. So for one, trauma, just being separated from their
the mental effect.
Just the mental effect. The other day I was joking, half joking with my fiance. We went to a restaurant and there were some children crying. And I was saying, this kid's probably crying for this, or this kid's probably crying because he's hungry or something. And if you listen to the video of the children in the detention centers crying, it's trauma, it's fear. That's what's in their voices. So this is something that these children might never recover from, just the mental anguish of being separated from your mother. There are some instances where their parents have already been deported, so now they're not even in this country. Their children are here by themselves. So even though the president signed an executive order a couple days ago, it doesn't make any provisions for the almost 3,000 children that have already been separated. How are we going to get those back to their parents? We don't know yet.
Okay. Bianca, you've given us a wonderful, wonderful information about this. We're going to take a short break, and we will return and discuss about this. And again, you are tuning into 590 AM, Voice of Reason Boston, and we will continue with immigration attorney Bianca Gay. Thank you for tuning in to 590 Voice of Reason Boston, and thank you, Bianca Gay, for coming here and talking about the immigration policies and what's going on in our country today. And as we were speaking before the break about these children, what's going to happen to those who already been separated, and what is the next plan for them?
So unfortunately, when it comes to the children that have already been separated from their parents, your guess is as good as mine. And it really shouldn't be like that, because this is children we're talking about. And even before, like weeks before the executive order was signed, there was this, it was kind of in the air as to whether or not the children were lost. The government said, well, they're not lost, but they've been misplaced.
You're right.
Losing and misplacing a child is the same thing. These are children, and that's what sparked them, I guess, to start numbering the children, which for a lot of people is a very jarring image. There was a little boy who had the number 47 on his chest and on his arm, and it was very jarring because it pretty much brought people back to concentration camps and the Holocaust. So even though we have this executive order that says we won't be separating children further, it doesn't give any recourse for the children that have already been separated. And the executive order, so imagine somebody setting a house on fire and then dousing it, hosing it down with water and then wanting credit for doing that. That's pretty much what the president did with his executive order. He created this policy that never needed to be implemented. He wanted zero tolerance for these people that are coming here to seek asylum for their, for a better life. And then he signs an executive order to say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. But I don't want people to think that everything is, going to be happily ever after, because all this means now is that they're not going to separate the children from the parents. They're just going to detain the children with the parents. So basically, we're going to have a whole bunch of children that are being detained with other adults, and that's not right either.
Now, even if the kids were born in the country, they'll still detain them with their parents?
So possibly, because, I don't really know how many children were born here that are being detained, so I can't really answer that.
All right. Okay. And So people can understand, are people just coming in here illegally, or what's being done?
As far as the southern border, or
Yes.
just in general?
Just in general,
Okay.
and the southern border.
Okay, so I'd like to kind of hopefully set the record straight that we don't have like these wide open borders where it's a free for all. Everybody's just coming, and whoever wants to come here can come here.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of people in the world that would love to hurt us, and if our borders are really as open as people think they are, then that would have happened already. We have very secure borders, regardless of what people say. What's happening is we have a lot of people, especially now coming from like Central and Southern America and Mexico, that are coming here for a better life. So, for example, like last month, Guatemala had a really disruptive, I think it was a volcano that really hurt a lot of the people there. There are people that are escaping gangs. There are women that are escaping abusive husbands or partners. So they're coming here applying for asylum. And when you apply for asylum, which by the way is authorized by the United States immigration law and international law. So when these people are coming to our borders to apply for asylum, they actually aren't breaking the law. They're applying for a benefit that our immigration laws give to them.
Okay.
And they're coming here, to apply for asylum. You have to show that you have either been persecuted or will be persecuted and or tortured on account of your race, your sexual orientation, your political views, your religion, things like that. So these people are coming here, because they've been persecuted or tortured or because they fear that they will be. And this is why they're coming here. They're not coming here to steal our jobs. They're not coming here to use up our system and go on welfare and not work. I don't know a lazy immigrant. Like, I have yet to meet one. I know immigrants to be very hardworking people, to be people that are willing to work, however many jobs they need to work.
Yeah.
I don't know any lazy immigrants. And I think that if the American people that are very anti-immigrant would really take the time to get to know immigrants, they would see that we're really not.
Is there any plan in place, like any set of rules or policies that if you are seeking asylum or if you're seeking to stay in this country, is there like a list of steps beforehand that they can go through in order to not be in a position where they have to be deported right away?
So that's a tough question to answer. So just to kind of walk people through what happens. So say you come to the border and just for the sake of simplicity, say you come and you knock on the door and say, hey, I want to come into America, and you say that you want to apply for asylum. They're supposed to let you in. They process you. They go through something called a credible fear interview, which is how the immigration officers gauge whether or not you really are trying to apply for asylum for real, or you're just saying it so you can come in here. Assuming that you pass your credible fear interview, then you're able to come here. You are then oftentimes given resources, so you'll be given a list of pro bono immigration attorneys to contact, and then you'll be given a court date to come back for. Eventually, you'll be given a court date to come back to do your asylum application. Asylum is very complicated. It's a very complicated area of law, and asylum, as well as just immigration in general, is more than just filling out forms. You really have to know what you're doing. You really want to make sure that if you really are coming here to seek asylum, that you have all your backups. If you're coming here because you've been tortured or persecuted, that you have the proof, you have the documentation, you have the witnesses. So you would just want to make sure that you're really applying for asylum because this really happened to you, not just saying that you're applying.
Yeah, and I know we spoke briefly about it, how people should be careful of who they have them helping the forms, because
Yes.
everybody now is an expert.
Especially now. So many immigrants, unfortunately, are being taken advantage of right now because immigration is hot, right? I mean, there's so many immigrants that are just scared, and they're just running to whoever says, hey, give me $1,000, I can get you a green card. And, even immigration will tell you, the wrong help can hurt. And so that's also really why I wanted to do immigration, because at least for our community, we don't really have a lot of immigration lawyers in the Haitian community.
Right.
So a lot of Haitian people have no choice but to rely on, their pastor, who might have the greatest of intentions, but you're not an immigration lawyer. So you might end up hurting your parishioner more than helping them. Or they go to, your neighborhood like person that, does accounting and hair and whatever businesses they do. And they're like, oh, well, I can fill out your immigration form for you. And that's it. Immigration is more than filling out forms, especially nowadays where policy is changing almost every day. It's hard for lawyers like me to keep up with the changes in immigration, never mind someone who's not an attorney at all. So it's really important nowadays, like now more than ever. Like if you needed to go to a doctor to have a kidney removed, you wouldn't go to your neighborhood pastor or whatever. So why are you doing the same thing with your immigration?
Yeah, and there's a lot of repercussions when it comes to going to the wrong people.
Definitely.
Just to help you fill out forms because you think the person knows, but really, like you said, it's always changing, and you need to be updated on the new policies and new laws. Have there been any new policies that has been taking place now?
Definitely. So aside from the executive order, so another troubling issue that we have is Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Since January, he's been referring certain immigration cases to himself so that he can reverse the ruling. So most recently last week, prior to last week's ruling, if you were a domestic violence victim, you could use that as a basis for filing for asylum. Jeff Sessions overturned that last week. So similarly with DACA. So DACA right now is kind of in like a weird place because you can still renew your application. So if you have DACA, you can still continue to renew. And actually, a couple months ago, a federal judge, I believe in New York, he basically told the administration that you have 90 days to prove to me why you ended DACA. And if you don't give me a valid reason, then not only do you have to continue to accept renewal applications, I will also order you to accept new applications as well. So that's a policy that's kind of in flux. The deadline's coming up for that. But there are a lot of immigration policies that are changing day by day. This zero tolerance policy that we've had with the outcry over the children being separated, that was a new immigration policy.
Right. And also yesterday I was reading how the Attorney General Maura Healey, she's looking for people to sign to sue the president for what he's doing. What do you think about that?
I haven't been following that. So I can't really comment. But I mean, what this administration has done as far as separating families, I mean, for one, it violates a lot of international law and treaties. Like, we're supposed to, kind of like if you think about family law, how you have the best interest of the child, we have like a child refugee act that's pretty much the same thing, that you're supposed to keep the families together and you're basically supposed to do things that are in the best interest of the child. We're a member state of the United Nations, meaning we have to follow their treaties, and by separating these children from their parents, we're violating international law.
Okay, so I would encourage people who are listening in and the public, go check. If you disagree with what President Trump is doing, Attorney Maura Healey is looking for signatures to sue the president because this is wrong. Had this happened to my parents and your parents, again, we would not be here to be a voice and be an advocate for other people that's out there who are suffering. And where would we be? We wouldn't be able to accomplish our dreams. We wouldn't be able to accomplish certain things that we have. And all these people want is just a dream to live and give to their children and to be able to have something for themselves. And it's very sad that this country that we're in, even though we have the history of doing that, but we're in 2018 and it's still continuing. So it's up to us as a whole, as a community, to put an end to this.
It's up to us to really make America great. It's really up to us to make this country what we want it to be for not only ourselves, but for our children. I am, scared to death of bringing children into this world that we live in today. So we really have to think, like, if this really is not us, then we need to prove it to ourselves. We really need to make the country what we want it to be. And, just like I said, just for our future generations, we really need to take a look at ourselves and see and think, is this the America that we want to live in?
Exactly. We may not all agree. We can agree to disagree, but it's very important as a community to raise our voice in a respectful way, and talk and have a dialogue to see what's going on. and look around your community. If there's certain things that are going on that you don't like, read into your candidates, read into what's going on, and then make a choice. And when it's time to vote in November, you can make that choice that fits for what you believe in.
Right.
And by not voting, you're just hurting
Right.
this country because of certain things that are happening. People are just going to continue to do it. Now, as we speak about these children being separated from their parents, what about the children who are under DACA? How are they being impacted by that?
So DACA and what's happening at the border are two separate things. As
Okay.
I mentioned, DACA, for all intents and purposes, right now still exists. So if you have DACA, you can still renew your status. And it remains to be seen whether new DACA applications will be allowed. But right now, nothing's really changing with DACA. If you have DACA, you can still renew.
Okay. And at this point, that's a question for me, and I'm pretty sure someone else may have that other question. Do you stop being an immigrant, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So for me, I don't think you ever really stop being an immigrant.
Mhm.
I mean, we're a country of immigrants, period. I mean,
Yes.
unless you're a Native American, you're an immigrant. So I don't think you ever really stop being an immigrant. I don't think it's something as soon as you come to the United States,
Mhm.
and then like even if you become a citizen, like I feel like you're an American citizen, but I don't think you ever shed like the
Change, yeah.
immigrant status. I feel like once an immigrant, always an immigrant.
And the funny thing is, this America, without immigrants, you wouldn't
Wouldn't
be
be here. We
you
wouldn't
wouldn't be
have it.
America.
Right.
You know, I can remember our former mayor, Thomas Menino.
Mhm.
He talked about his Italian family.
Mhm.
He talked about how his parents were immigrants and how they worked hard, and he was one of the first people who graduated out of college and to become one of the greatest mayors in Boston.
Right.
You know, and the president's wife is an immigrant.
Right.
So we have all these people who are impacting the world
Right.
for the good and the bad, and they have immigrants, and then again, you're against immigrants.
Right, and immigrants are just so ingrained in our fabric that we cannot function without immigrants. I mean, even if you think about, so right now it's summertime, Massachusetts, we have Cape Cod, other places in the country have their beach and touristy towns. For the past 2 years, Cape Cod has been struggling because Cape Cod is very touristy, so a lot of these restaurants rely on immigrants who work here legally with H-2B visas. The president since last year has been cutting the number of H-2B visas that these business owners can get. These are American business owners that are hiring immigrant workers, not necessarily because they don't want to hire Americans, but Americans really don't want these jobs. Americans, to be honest, don't want jobs where they're, like catching fish and like shucking vegetables and all those things. Like Americans really just don't want to do that, and not so much because they don't want to do that, but it's very hard work. Like every year I have a summer garden with my mom, and it's just a small garden, but it's so much work. And I admittedly, if I had to do that job for like 8 hours a day, like I would quit after one day. But immigrants, work these jobs. They're not afraid of hard work. So what's happening with these tourist towns is that they're struggling because they don't have enough visas to hire these people. So if they don't have enough visas to hire these people, forget hiring, immigrants. They're not even going to be able to hire Americans because they're not going to be able to sustain anything, and they're going to go out of business. Our president is, in the process of issuing tariffs to China, which is going to make goods more expensive for us. A lot of American business owners have already voiced concern over this because it makes their supplies more expensive. So if they're struggling, then they can't even hire American workers, even if they wanted to. So we really can't, just take immigrants out of America. Like we really need them. Even if you think about like avocado farmers and strawberry farmers, just our agriculture heavily depends on immigrants, and a lot of immigrants aren't showing up for these jobs because they're so scared of
afraid of what's gonna
being
happen.
intimidated or deported in some instances.
Or threatened.
I don't see a lot of Americans going to apply for these jobs. So it's a myth that immigrants are stealing our jobs, because there are a lot of jobs open that immigrants are turning down out of fear that Americans could easily pick back up. So it's not that immigrants are stealing jobs from Americans. It's that Americans don't want these jobs. And there's nothing wrong with the fact that Americans don't want these jobs. I mean, I didn't go to law school so that I can, go and work in fields either. But it's just this myth that, we're losing jobs to immigrants, when in reality, we're losing jobs to technology.
Is it fair to say that immigrants are causing a lot of crimes in this country?
Absolutely not. There's also this myth that immigrants are criminals, and I mean, to be fair, there are some that are,
Yeah.
and absolutely those immigrants that are
Should
here
be held accountable.
should be held accountable,
Right.
should be deported if they're, I've had, clients that have been domestic violence victims at the hands of immigrants. Absolutely, those immigrants should be deported if need be. But the majority of immigrants are not that. Actually, there have been a lot of statistics that show that if you live in a community with immigrants, your community is actually more likely to be safer than
Oh,
not.
wow. Okay. And I know we spoke about, what people can do about the situation. I know you told me something as a personal testimony that you're part of a volunteering group, if you can share that with us.
So I reached out. So there's an organization called Lawyers for Good Government. And so they're just trying to get people to volunteer. So if you're an immigration attorney and you're looking for a way to try to help the kids at the border, look into Lawyers for Good Government. They're just looking for volunteers. You don't have to be in Texas. You can be remote. You can help somebody with an asylum application. You can translate. You can offer whatever you can. So I've reached out to them. I haven't heard anything back yet, but I just feel like I can't not do anything.
Is there a website where people can go and get more information if you're an immigration attorney?
So, you can Google Lawyers for Good Government and
Okay.
it should pop up.
All right, that's good. And as a woman of faith, how has this shaped you? How has this helped you continue to do your job with the passion, with the fire that you have?
So for me, it's just about realizing the privilege that I have
Okay.
and honing in on that. So for me, if not for God, I would not have become an attorney
Right.
because law school was the hardest 3 years of my life. And then after I graduated from law school, like I told you, I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 12. It was the only thing that ever really mattered to me. And the first time I took the bar exam, I failed it by 1.47 points. And after I became an attorney, I struggled really hard. Like I couldn't find work. Like I was really broken, like unemployed and just struggling. And that really tested my faith because here it is. I finally have what I've wanted my whole life, and God's really making me work for it. It's as
Right.
if God was like, "Oh, you want this? Prove it." And so, because of that, my faith is just really strong in that. Like, I really would not be here without God just letting me.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
You and I both. Is there a solution to this madness that's going on right now?
Vote in November of 2018 and vote in 2020. If this is really not the America that you want, then prove it at the
or
polls.
envisioned,
Prove it at the
wherever.
polls.
Yep, prove it at the polls. And is there enough resources? Do you think there's enough resources out there in the community or anywhere? Is there enough resources where people can just go and find out about all the policies, all the changes, anything out there that has anything to do with immigration? Do you think there's enough resources to be educated on?
I think so. So AILA is the American Immigration Lawyers Association. I'm a member of AILA both nationally and the New England branch.
Okay.
So if you go to AILA.org, there is a section on the website that has like a daily publication, and it's basically a digest of immigration news that's happening on a daily basis. They kind of curate all the immigration stories from different publications throughout the country so that you can get it all in one spot, and it's updated daily. So you can go there as far as getting involved with, as far as getting the news about immigration.
Okay. And is there any upcoming events that you're doing or anything that you would like to share with the public?
So me personally, I'm in the process of trying to put out more resources for the community, so that'll be coming in the next month or so.
Okay.
But the only thing I can think of, on July 28th, I will be at the Black Market in Dudley, which is across the street from Haley House in Dudley Square, and I will be setting up a table, basically just giving people free access to me, just information. So if you have questions about, whether it's immigration or business or trademarks or whatever, I'll be there all day, so you can come in and ask questions free of charge. I'll have resources available for people that want to get in touch afterwards.
Okay. And do you think, because of the separating of the children with their parents, do you think they'll be providing like counseling for children to be able to rehabilitate what has happened to them? anything that can help them cope with the struggles and with this mental effect that just happened to them.
I hope so. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath on it, but I would like to think that these children would have access to some type of, therapist or something, because a lot of these children are have experienced trauma that they might never get over.
And trauma is something that if you don't get the help, it can, cycle on to something else, depression,
Right.
Anxiety,
Right.
Being away from I'm an old woman, I would say. Well, young.
No, you're not. Okay.
And I don't know what I would do without my mom at this point, or
Right.
even my dad.
Right.
And to see these children to be ripped away, I can't say taken away.
Yeah.
They've literally been ripped away
Some
from
as young as like breastfeeding age.
Yeah. Being ripped away from their parents' arms is unbelievable.
Yep.
And I don't understand how someone can who's ruling the country can just go to sleep at night
Right.
and think it's okay.
Right.
What is your take on that?
Well, a lot of things. It's easy for you to do that when you dehumanize somebody. So a lot of people think of immigrants as savages. They think of them as not people. We call them illegals. No human being is illegal, but that's what we categorize them because we don't want to recognize their humanity. So when you're able to dehumanize somebody and ignore the fact that they're a human being, it's easy for you to not care what happens,
Right.
like what happens to them and what they're going through.
And what advice would you have to anyone who was listening in or, watching you right now? What advice would you have for those who are still scared, who don't know what to do, and, is just seeking the help, but is so scared and cannot trust anyone? What would you advise them?
Definitely pray about it, but also try to find somebody that you can trust. Always trust your gut. It never lies to you. So before you open up to somebody, just see what your gut is saying, and if they feel like a trustworthy person, then talk to them, ask them. And also try to find somebody that you can reach out to. Preferably an attorney if you have immigration issues. Definitely try to reach out. Nothing is really hopeless. It's not, for me, I'm like an internal optimist. It's not hopeless until it's hopeless. And by hopeless, like God has to literally tell me like, okay, you can't do anything else.
I agree. Yeah.
So for me, like I am very like fight to the very end.
Do you think churches are opening their doors to talk about with people in the community, to talk about what's going on with the immigration? Because most people have a lot of immigrants in their church. Do you think that they're reaching out and providing resources to their congregation to talk about, to have an immigration attorney come in and just talk about what's going on and what's going to happen?
Some are. So I've been invited by a couple churches to come in and talk to their congregations about immigration, whether it's just teaching them about their rights, like what to do if ICE comes to your door or to your job, like if you have TPS, what are your options? So I've been able to go to some churches and talk to people. So I think some churches are open to that. I don't know as far as sharing resources. I mean, I can't speak for all churches, but I've been invited by some.
Okay. Do you only go to Haitian churches, or is it just a different variety? What type of churches do you go to?
I'm equal opportunity, so
Okay.
whoever wants me to come and speak to their congregation about immigration, I'm up for it. It just so happens that most of the churches I've been invited to have been Haitian because I can speak Creole.
Right.
Yeah.
And if people want to know more about you and your work that you do, where can they go and find that?
So I'm most active on social media. Blessing and a curse of being a millennial lawyer, I guess. But on social media, I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me at Attorney Bianca. So that's ATTORNEY Bianca, BIANCA. You can also visit my website, bgaylaw.com, where it has more information about me, some blog posts, things like that. You can also, if you have a question or want to reach out to me, you can email me, bianca@bgaylaw.com. or give me a call, 508-942-7497.
Thank you, Bianca, so much for all this wonderful information that you have provided. Also, I encourage the public, our community, if you don't like what's going on, definitely reach out to Bianca. And not only that, there's resources out there for you to learn about what's going on to the country. We all have some type of immigrants in our blood, right? And we need to put an end to this. We need to put a stop to this because these children does not deserve
Right.
being separated from their parents. They're human beings at the end of the day. They're just not a number where you can just put a number on
Right.
them and try to identify who they belong to. That's certainly not right. As a community, as a whole, if you have a voice, you should use your voice and reach out to your city councilors to see what they're doing. There's numbers that you can call to get resources. Do you know that website where people can go and get more information in Boston?
Not off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Okay. We can always put that on our Facebook page so that people, can go and get more information. And we want to thank our listeners for listening in, and also for those who are in the radio who are tuning in. If you have a question, if you would like to hear more about what we're talking about or any other segments, I would encourage you to email me at voiceofreasonboston@gmail.com. We want to hear your concerns. We want to hear what you want to happen. We want to have a dialogue. We want to communicate effectively to our public to let them know certain things that are happening and what we can do to change these things, because we are here for the voiceless. We have a voice. You're an attorney. And this is what we're doing to help our community. As a Haitian woman, we know how the Haitian community is. There's a lot that are still silent. There's a lot that does not know what to do. And there are a lot of them that are crying and they don't know what's going to happen for next year. But if we can voice our opinion and communicate effectively together, I have faith that we will have an answer for them. I have faith that things will change and for them to not worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. But again, I want to thank our listeners for listening in. And Bianca, it is a pleasure to have you here, and you are always more than welcome to come and give us information about immigration and what's happening and what's changing. And again, if you can give them your website information so they can go on.
Sure. So my website again is begaylaw.com, and you can reach out to me. My email contact is there as well, but just in case, it's bianca@begaylaw.com. Thanks so much for having me.
You're more than welcome.
Okay.